Washington from college when I graduated in 1962 from Brown University. I came with a group of college classmates to Washington, D.C. because we were going to get into the Kennedy administration and we were going to change the world, and we were certainly drawn to here because of politics.
We were perfectly happy planning our next major event when the phone rang, and it was Marvin Watson, who was the chief of staff to Lyndon Johnson. Johnson was planning on possibly running for re-election. Johnson knew that Bobby was going to run. So he said to me, he said, I wanted to hire an Irishman that wasn't afraid of Bobby Kennedy.
During the period that we came with Johnson, we also saw the riots and the death of Martin Luther King. And I think that our identity with the city, because we were right downtown in the middle of that, and Bill was working with the president on the response to that.
Martin Luther King's been shot, and then word started coming to us about the Troubles. And Walter Washington and I were standing there together. Walter was a great, great friend of ours. And he and I were getting ready to go in a helicopter to fly around the city to look at it, to report back to the president. The president said, the general, where do the troops carry the ammunition? Well, the general says they carry their bullets right around in their cartridge belt, Mr. President. He said, empty the cartridge belts. You can put the ammunition in the trucks, but I don't want any young kid firing an M1 rifle or whatever at an American citizen in the District of Columbia just because he made a mistake and got nervous. Walter and I got up in the helicopter, and there was this one guy in the middle of 14th and U with his hand up, whom I knew, wearing his dashiki and long hair. It was Marion Barry, trying to stop the crowds. I actually became a friend, I think, or a companion of Marion Barry to the day he died because of that scene.
I think we really already had an identity with Washington, D.C. We wanted to raise our children here, and we wanted to work in the city.
Dorothy and I always had this great interest in education, building schools, and using art as another expression of education.
Bill brought the first corporate monies to the arts in Washington, D.C. Washington is so divided racially. And it was hard to get out of Northwest Washington, to tell you the truth. And Northwest Washington was only a segment of Northwest that was very much of a white enclave. When I wanted to take these programs into Anacostia, into Northeast Washington, Southeast Washington, it took me into parts of the city that I had never been in, and that, really you were frightened to go into. You were, had been told that it was violent, and as a white person you would not be accepted. If you were bringing arts, that put you in another category. And so I was able to go into the schools, and I was able to bring programs into the city, the inner city, and all that did was strengthen my drive and desire, because I would certainly see what was missing and what was an area that we could change. Every arts organization that I was asked to join the board of, I asked, what was your community engagement? And I was determined that these wonderful arts organizations have some responsibility to engage the city and bring our children to all the arts. One of the initial programs that I was so proud of was called NSO in Your Neighborhood. My children at that point were looking at Mr. Rogers in your neighborhood. And when I was trying to think of a concept of bringing artists into the schools and into the various wards of Washington, D.C., I called it NSO in Your Neighborhood. And had its ups and downs. This is many years ago. It's had its ups and downs, but it has now been resurrected, and it's very active part of the community programming of the National Symphony Orchestra right now, called NSO in Your Neighborhood. So I was able to bring monies, the city monies, to programs that were just beginning to start. One of them is a DC photography program that we have that's now struggling initially, that is now they bring the cameras to the children and they take photographs that are the most telling things you've ever seen. And I put them together with the Washington Post, and I put them with other people, and we gave them grants. So it's now a major program with kids in the city. But there are things like that happen throughout, including double nickels, I might add. which, you know, we suddenly recognized that we didn't have any programs for seniors. And it was one of our criterias in to bring city monies to all ages. And education is certainly one of our foremost, components. And we were forgetting the other end. We were thinking only children in education, but it's seniors too.
Lifetime.
And it's community. And so, all of these things come back, I think in your life, and you can see areas where it just, a little bit of emphasis, a little bit of structure, a little bit of, let's work on this project, let's do something about it.